Good afternoon, dear classmates and tutor. Today I'm going to be talking about an article that is called The Implementation of the 5E Model Stages to Build Students' Vocabulary. This is a really interesting article, and basically we are going to have like a small analysis of this interesting topic, just to identify why the researcher used a qualitative method during the research. Okay, so first off, we have to identify the main problem. I just try to use some colors just to have like a better understanding of what is important in the text. So first off, we have that there are some main factors that affect the fact of students are not learning vocabulary in classes. So as we can tell here, the first part, it says that in red color it says lack of students motivation. That is one of the reasons. And then we have lack of students engagement. So as we can tell here, the main problem identified by the author of the article is that in vocabulary course is that the second semester students are poor and weak in vocabulary comprehension. As we can see here, guys, the main problem is like a behavioral learning process, which is a human problem, and that's why the author decided to follow a methodology based on a qualitative method of research, because as I already mentioned, the main problem argues a humanistic problem. That problem was based on some important facts. The first one was highlighted here, and it says lack of facility. I'm not totally sure if you can see that, so I'm going to try to underline that with yellow color. So it says lack of facility. That is the main problem the author identified. Then the author mentions students' lack of background in terms of knowledge of English, and then the author mixed them, these two concepts, in order to say that the problem which were derived from many aspects, such as low motivation, once again it was mentioned right here, I'm so sorry for that line, and lack facility. Okay, the four components that the author mentioned in this research is that the vocabulary instruction is not being interested enough for students. So they obviously don't have motivation, and this is basically because we have teacher-centered classes, and that is something that we all know affects a second language learning process. However, that is not our main topic. Our main topic is considering why the author described, or better, based his research on a qualitative basis. So as we can see with those four concepts the author mentioned, the ones that I just highlighted, they all refer to humanistic problems, and that is like the base concept or the cornerstone in a qualitative research. Okay, so after this, in this part, the author mentions the method, and that is something that is really explicit on the text, and I just highlighted some things in blue. And as we can see right here, the first part is action research, and action research is one of the methodologies that, from my point of view, I could consider is like the most used in research, and it is just based on a planning and implementations stage, observing stage, and reflecting stage. These all stages leads the research in order to get different kind of conclusions, and that's why the author just mentioned here that action research centered on action of a basis improvement of practicing and increasing understanding about practice in a collaborating group. So as we can tell, once again, the author is mentioning the human problematic that it was found before the research started, and then he's mentioning that through action research he was going to go into the classroom. That is why it is called action, because he went into the classroom, and he started observing students' performance in classes. And there is a tool that was also implemented, not only the planning stage, because in the planning stage, well, obviously the researcher took some time in order to create what he was going to be doing. After that, he followed an implementation stage in which he tried to identify how students could learn more vocabulary in terms of learning vocabulary, memorizing vocabulary, remembering vocabulary, or getting new vocabulary from previous knowledge. And basically, at the end of this process, the researcher proposed a questionnaire, and that is something that I just highlighted here in green. I hope you can see it. I'm underlining it in yellow now. And that questionnaire is another tool that is used in qualitative research, because when you try to get information from students and when you want to identify, the conclusion, that you want to find out conclusions regarding a specific humanistic problem, you need to know people's understanding or people's points of view regarding that topic. In questions or questionnaires or interviews are great tools in order to get that kind of conclusions or information, or in order to gather information to draw conclusions once the research has passed by the observing and reflecting stages. Okay, so in that questionnaire, while the researcher tried to get some insights from students, for example, the first question, as is mentioned here, was confirming students' agreement on the 5E model. So just to know whether the students were kind of happy, familiar, or if they considered the 5E model was useful or not for them. And here the researcher was still asking different questions. Actually, he created 8 questions in total. And all of them were in order to know students' opinion regarding this process that was done in their classes. At the end of the article, there were different kind of findings in which basically the author mentioned it was fruitful because he could identify new processes in order to get students to know or to learn better, more vocabulary. And finally, he tried to give like a general conclusion about this. So as we can tell here in this article, qualitative research was used, just like a small conclusion in one hand, because the main problem was a humanistic problem, and the researcher tried to get insights in order to improve, to solve that problem. The problem basically was the lack of vocabulary in students, and he tried to get like the reasons why these students were not learning vocabulary. Secondly, because the methodology implemented, he used action research, which is one of the most the processes that researchers use the most in order to get information or gather information to draw conclusions. And to do so, the researcher also used questionnaires, which is another tool qualitative researchers use or implement in order to develop their researches. That's all for today. Thanks for watching. I'll be attentive to any comment.